What's up, everybody, and welcome to Quickfire Comics and Games, Episode 8, and today we are going to be discussing one of my favorite franchises of all time, and that is the Alien franchise. I love Alien so much. I love the movies, the comics, the games. Alien is very much integrated into pop culture as we know it. You see it all over everything, including t-shirts. I can't say enough about the series as a whole, so I think you have to pretty much talk about the movies if you're going to be talking about Alien and the Alien franchise to begin with. So, first of all, if you don't own the series already, I highly recommend checking out Costco or Costco.com. You can pick up the whole quadrilogy for $17, and that is all 4 of the films. You have Alien, Aliens 2, Aliens 3, and Alien Resurrection. However, this was not the first time I obviously seen this film. I probably first saw Alien, I want to say back in 1989, which would have made me 8. Ooh, that's scary. Anyway, so when I first saw the film, I remember it scaring the shit out of me. No lies. Like, that was an extremely, extremely scary film for the age that I was. And I remember just being terrified. You know, you have this situation where these people are pretty much stuck on this ship with no way of escaping with this killing machine on board. And I really think that's what Ridley Scott, the director, was going for when he made that first film. It's also to notice, and good to point out here, this was 1979. And if you watch this film today, it still holds up. I mean, it's still super scary, and it's still visually appealing. Couple of cool facts here. It actually won an Academy Award for Best Visual Arts. So, visual effects. And that's a big deal for 1979, because they didn't have CGI, they didn't obviously have the computers powerful enough to create this monster and create this atmosphere and create space like you see behind me. So for being a 1979 film, it blows you away still for the graphic fidelity of the whole thing. So, saying that, that's pretty much the entire tone for that movie. It's very creepy. I think a good thing to note too was the actors that they got on board. I mean, Sigourney Weaver for the time did an excellent job as your main character. I mean, she shows. If you watch her face and watch this movie today, she plays the part of being terrified so well. Like, I don't think anybody else would have been able to just nail it like she did in the original film. And so, I mean, this is a movie that you could probably go back. I've personally probably seen the film I think, like, without being, like, over-exaggerated, it's probably 20, 30 times, maybe. I mean, I used to have this tape. VHS tape was probably the first format that I owned, the original film, and then later bought it on DVD and Blu-ray, and I probably have it digitally somewhere, too. Who knows? But I highly recommend starting there. Moving on to Aliens, which was directed by James Cameron, I liked it just as much. It's just a different kind of film. So, comparing Alien to Aliens, people have their personal favorites, and there's no right or wrong answer, really. I mean, it's just a personal preference of, do you prefer a more horror approach, or do you like the more sci-fi action? Because the thing is, I mean, Aliens is very much more of an action flick and a sci-fi adventure as opposed to a, solo horror flick. I mean, James Cameron did an excellent job with bringing a new team of Marines into this scenario where instead of just one main alien, there's thousands of them and they're mowing them down. There's just a lot of gunplay in it, and it's a different kind of suspense. But also, you see some of probably one of the coolest scenes ever in all of movies. I'm going to kind of spoil it at the end, where Ripley kind of jumps into this giant loader bot, and her and the main alien queen are just battling it out. That scene, just still to this day, gives me the goosebumps. It's just so good. So good. So, Aliens 2 is rad. Also, that's the first time where you actually get to see Bishop, the droid. And, I mean, my gosh, like, you're talking about just a killer lineup and cast. I mean, there's just a whole bunch of good people in there as far as actors are concerned. I kind of they're on the top of my head. I know there's Carrie Henn, Michael Brain, Paul Reisner, a couple others, but I digress. The movie is just amazing. And then jumping to that, this is where a lot of people think in the movie franchise that it started to go downhill, and I don't really necessarily agree with that. So Aliens 3. So Alien 3, you know, basically, it's directed by David Finch. And David Finch has a very particular way of directing, and some people just didn't like it. And I don't see why, you know. They kind of went to the old roots of the original Alien. They're on a maximum security planet where there's no weapons, and they have an alien on board stuck with them on this planet. Not on board, but in the maximum security prison. The one thing where it doesn't really do a good job at is it doesn't really tell you... Well, I can't really say this without any spoilers. Somehow Ripley gets impregnated with the alien by Facehugger, but they never really explain how that Facehugger got onto the ship from 2 to 3. And so that was the only kind of thing where, and if they did explain it, it's not done well. That was the only thing that, for me, I was like, oh, really? I kind of like saw it going there. But just to say, you know, it is filled also with another killer cast and lineup, and there are some great scenes in that which are very, very awesome. I mean, it's a very dark movie. It's very gothy, and just you're stuck in a prison, and it's dark, and it's wet, and it's hostile, and there's this alien killing everybody. I mean, it's pretty brutal. It's a really brutal film. But I liked it, and I don't think that it gets as much credit as it deserves. Moving on to Resurrection, I think Resurrection is kind of where, in my opinion, it really falls apart. You got Winona Ryder in there, and then they try to basically say, this is kind of a spoiler, but like, I mean, at the end of 3, Sigourney Weaver tosses herself into the pit of fire, and they're able to, like, clone her in Resurrection from blood that she left, like, somewhere in the prison, and it's just, the whole concept is that there's this alien Ripley clone that's part alien, but not, and, like, she's got kind of, like, acid for blood now, and it just, oh, God, it just falls apart from there, and it's just not good. There is one scene in Resurrection that I really like, and there's a scene where they're going underwater, and there's these aliens chasing them through this underground water part, and they're moving slow motion, and they're shooting guns underwater, so that's like probably, in my opinion, like the coolest scene in Resurrection. I mean, is it worth watching? I mean, I guess it just depends upon how nutty of an Alien fan you are. I feel like it could be skipped, and hopefully if they ever try to do like a reimagining of the Alien franchise, they'll just consider just saying that that's canon, not really like a part of the overarching story. As far as hopes for the movies in the future, I mean, it's been kind of an up and down battle with Aliens. You know, you've been seeing a lot of the Aliens versus Predator stuff coming out, and that's been really hit or miss, not good in my opinion in most cases. And unfortunately, you know, it's just a shame that this awesome franchise is kind of gone on the back burner and is just slowly disappearing. It really is. It's a shame, and I really do love the movies. Moving on, you know, Aliens has, you know, invaded all the forms of media, including comic books. The comics are really good. So Dark Horse, who is an awesome publisher, pretty much got their hands on the Alien franchise as a whole, and there is a lot of Alien comic books. So instead of like going over all of them, I'm going to just recommend that you pick up the Aliens omnibuses. So here they are. There's a big, huge amount of them. I only have 4. There's like a total of 7. So the Aliens Omnibus, #1, is obviously where you'd want to start off. You can pick this up on Amazon for about $14-15, but it's thick. And you're looking like, when you're going through here, let's see how many stories they give you. It's a lot. So 1, 2, 3, they give you 6 full stories in one awesome book. Ooh, I love that book smell. So yeah, that's where you'd want to do it. Once again, they're the Aliens omnibuses. There's a ton of them. They're all full of some good stories. Not some are, you know, it's a collection of stories. So some of the stuff's awesome, some of the stuff is so-so, and it's a lot of aliens, so you can kind of get burnt out pretty quickly. So just be mindful of that. You know you've made the big time when you find yourself up against specific characters. There's been a crazy amount of crossovers. You have Superman versus aliens. I don't recommend this book. I've talked about this before on the Comics and Joysticks podcast, but you don't want to read that book. But I mean, if you're going up against Superman, you've done something right. Another one that's actually not too bad is actually Batman versus aliens. It seems the way that they delivered the story, it's a much more believable kind of scenario. So that's pretty much it for the comic books. Another thing is the video games. Video games, they've been making tons of aliens video games forever. I remember playing my first one. It was probably back in the early 90s, and it was a side-scrolling shoot-'em-up. And you could really only move up or down, and you were shooting, obviously, to the right, and the aliens were just kind of running at you. And I remember putting in God knows how much quarters for days, or it might have just been tokens at my local arcade at the time. So there was that. One of my favorites, which actually a lot of people don't like, is the Aliens versus Predator. Yeah, you could probably put this up for like $5 now at a GameStop. What was kind of nice and unique about this particular game was it had 3 campaigns, actually. You could play through as the aliens, you could play through as the Predator, or play through as the U.S. Marines, or the Colonial Marines. And speaking about Colonial Marines, that was a terrible game. So there was a game that came out called Aliens Colonial Marines, which Gearbox finally got their hand on, and 2K, I believe, and it flopped big time. More notably, it would be the most recent release, and that's Alien Isolation. I believe Ryan McCaffrey from IGN gave it an average score. I think he was like a 7 or something like that. Don't quote me on that, but it wasn't a terrible score. It was just okay. But I've had a lot of friends who've played it, and they say if you're in the mood for a first-person survival horror game, it's definitely a good pickup. So, and I know for a fact you can pick up that game for about $25. That's Alien Isolation. So definitely worth playing. I still need to play it. My backlog is so huge. And my final thoughts about the alien is just how cool the character is. I mean, when you look at this character, I mean, just look at how crazy this guy is. They have all their action figures that you can get. This one is made by Todd McFarlane Toys, and I mean, it's just so detailed and beautiful. The actual character himself was created by, I think it's H.R. Geiger is how you say his name, and man, this guy must have been twisted to come up with this, because, I mean, when you look at this thing, he's like a perfect killing machine, right? I mean, it's got this crazy spiked tail, it's got super big claws, it's got a mouth which projects and, like, literally just comes out of its own face and stabs you in the face, and, it's got acid for blood. Like, you gotta be pretty disturbed to come up with, like, a character like this. I mean, even looking at some of the oldest evil characters of all time, like the Devil, big deal. Like, guy's got horns coming out of his head. Fucking the Alien, you know what I mean? That's some scary shit. Go along the other lines of toys. You can find these now. There's like Ripley from Aliens 2, which is pretty awesome. I got a bunch of them. These are just a couple of my favorites. And then we have the Queen Alien, the one responsible for hatching all of her young. So that's my little 2 cents on the Alien franchise. I really like it. I encourage you to drop everything and go watch the films. They're great. And you can pick everything up for super cheap now because it's been out for a while. And so that's my love of the Alien and the Alien franchise. That's pretty much all I got. Welcome and thank you for watching the Quickfire Comics and Games podcast. This was episode number 8. If you liked what you saw, please go ahead and follow and subscribe. Peace out and have a wonderful day. See you guys.